You most likely started your business to either make a lot of money or to work on your own schedule. No point in time did you start your business with the hopes of working harder or longer hours than you did when you had a job. But somewhere along the way, that's exactly what started to happen. You started making a lot of money, probably got a lot better, but then the hours got significantly worse. And even worse than that, you started to realize that your business only runs because you're in it every single day. Meanwhile, you start to see founders that are running their businesses either your size or even bigger than yours, and they're only working 4 hours a day, taking vacations whenever they want, while the business still continues to grow. Now, traditionally, this required large teams, thin margins, and a lot of overhead. But today, in the modern era, the difference between teams who are able and owners who can achieve that and not is the AI systems that live underneath those businesses. Now, I've put these same AI systems into 40 plus businesses in the last 4 to 5 months. This goes from marketing agencies to gyms to e-commerce businesses and educational information products. And before any of that, I ran 11 Orange Theory fitness locations in Vancouver with 200 plus staff. So I understand what scale looks like, and I know exactly where it starts to break. So I run a marketing agency, and our goal last year was to hit 6 figures a month. And that move felt super obvious, and the way to get there felt obvious. Get more clients, get more people, just keep pushing. And for a while, it was actually working really well. But then towards the end of the year, margins started shrinking, good hires were extremely hard to find, and honestly, a lot of the important work still required me to be in there. So I did what most people would do in my situation. I took on more clients to cover payroll, which meant more work for me, which meant more hires and even thinner margins once again. Now, most people in this position assume the answer is just, better hire or get better with your processes, or maybe even just start working a little bit harder. But truly it's not. Because what I came to the realization is your team is probably operating at a fraction of what they're truly capable of. Now, by no means am I saying that your team isn't operating well. I actually had a very strong core team around me, but I started to realize that we could probably actually output a lot more work than we currently were doing. And the reason our team wasn't able to output this work already was because we didn't have systems underneath it just didn't exist. And I started to realize the goal isn't just to get a bigger, wider, grander team. It's actually to have my current all-star team roster be able to 5 to 10x their current output. And that's what AI systems actually allow you to do. Multiply your team without having to actually grow them. But here's the thing, most people never actually get there because where they actually start is completely wrong. Now, the mistake that kills most AI implementation into business is usually something along the following. They open up ChatGPT, maybe even Claude. If you're sophisticated Manus, spend 20 minutes getting it to write something. Then they get an output that sounds absolutely nothing like them and decide that, you know what, AI just isn't that good, or AI doesn't work for my business just yet. But here's the thing, a generic tool is always gonna give you a generic output. And what actually works is a system that's trained on your specific business. So I'm talking your voice, your SOPs, and your actual business quality standards. Something you would either use to train your team or that your team would actually use to produce work because it actually sounds like you and your business. I'll take a great example. We're working with a local gym client here in Vancouver, and the current marketing agency they're working with was running one static image across every single campaign that they had. Now, if you're familiar with Facebook and Meta ads, you know that's not a great idea to do. But this agency had the same ad everywhere for months. And now don't get me wrong, the actual company itself has a very strong offer, their positioning's really good, and they have a lot of social proof and authority, but there was zero creative testing happening, and the agency was presenting really clean, sharp-looking numbers because there was really nothing to compare them against. So one of the first projects we ran with them was actually doing an ad analysis, and we use AI to power a lot of that. And we're able to quickly map and identify a couple things. The first is obviously major fatigue, which if you run meta ads, no major surprise. The second was an actual proper testing structure, and then taking that compared to some of the creatives their competitors are running and building a system that now actually finds and identifies trends automatically instead of letting the company run for the same creatives for months. Now, that's the difference between plugging in a tool like ChatGPT or Claude and actually using an AI system in place. Now, typically when we work with businesses, there are 3 systems. And the first one is where most founders are wasting the most amount of their time. When we work with businesses, we boil the AI systems into 3 compartments. This is essential to make your business run without you. And system 1 is what we call the marketing output engine. Now, if you're anywhere from that $250 to maybe $1 million annual range, you're probably still personally involved at some capacity in either producing, approving, or have your hand in the marketing. I hope it isn't, but we've seen it where it's even writing the actual copy itself. You might be reviewing the creative or as you should be, signing off anything before it goes out. But here's the thing, things like writing copy and creative, it's not really your job anymore. That's really just execution, and it's actually eating at hours that you should be spending on high leverage tasks to actually grow your business. Now, where the marketing output engine comes in is you take your brand's voice, your proven actual winning angles, your actual standard operating procedures, and produce campaign-ready work that your team can actually deploy without having to get you mixed in with writing copy or doing the ideation. You take your best performing copy, your brand voice doc, your proven offer angles, feed it all in. The system learns what good looks like for your specific business and starts producing at a standard without you having to be in the loop or in the day-to-day. Great example of this was a client that we actually worked with who was redesigning their whole landing page and video sales letter, and they wanted to kind of do a fresh start with the clientele that they were serving. Now, that usually requires a lot of deep research. So you're either doing a lot of stuff on Google, or you're maybe going on AI platforms, different chat platforms. And then from there, once you've done the research, you're taking all that, drafting copy, making sure that copy is actually congruent to your ideal client profile and to the business. Then you're taking all that and applying it to an actual landing page, which you have to design, including a video sales letter. Now, traditionally, this process, pre-AI, would take anywhere up to 2 weeks minimum. Now that AI has been around, it requires at least, if you're fast with it, 1 to 3 days, but typically we see the average be between 4 to 6 days. However, with the marketing output engine system, this process now runs about 1 to 2 hours. All that happens is the team, your team, will pick, refine, have a couple of options that you can deploy. And you as an owner, instead of writing the copy, you're now just reviewing. And instead of having to ideate and create, you're simply approving. The version of this I run inside my own marketing agency is actually what the entire AI drivers offer was completely built from. I needed to be able to 5x my own output without having to expand the team. And what I built to do that became the foundation for what we now build for our clients. But here's the thing, marketing output is only one piece of it. And on its own, it doesn't fix everything. Because the second your marketing works and leads start coming in, the next bottleneck becomes really apparent and shows up immediately. Now, that next bottleneck is usually in the sales front. And so what we do is we implement a sales intelligence loop. Now, most businesses have no actual real feedback loop between what's happening on sales calls or even on the sales floor and what's actually getting acted on. And without a system where you have a constant feedback loop on your sales call or sales floor, someone is manually having to sit through, actually watch the recordings and hope that they can catch things. Or even worse, they're gonna have to manually go up to the closers and ask how things are going. Not a system you can actually scale and grow upon. Now, the sales feedback loop is a system I built across multiple clients, and it changes the feedback loop completely because essentially what happens is the moment a closer actually gets onboarded, they go through an actual standard operating procedure of what they're supposed to be doing and what they're supposed to be fulfilling. And so they have a full understanding of from point A to point B, the journey that's supposed to take place so that they can focus on what they're good at, which is the actual closing process. And what happens is this guarantees a baseline quality standard without anyone having to manually actually manage it. No longer does your sales manager or someone else have to sit through hours of recordings from a week and hope that you don't miss anything. Also, additionally, there's no more missed feedback. You can run your call recordings through something as simple as Fathom, Fireflies, or maybe Otter, and then build a prompt that analyzes a transcript for all the major objections, all the conversion moments, and maybe even drop-off points. And there you go, you've got the foundation built. Now, beyond the actual onboarding for your closers, the system also automatically surfaces patterns across your sales calls. So within 72 hours, we're gonna immediately know which objections killed the most deals that week, which phrases have actually helped with framing the positioning or conversation that converted, and which closers are struggling, and exactly where in the conversation do they need either additional training or are they losing it. Again, traditionally, that feedback loop used to require someone manually reviewing every call, but now it runs automatically for you. I'll give you a great example of this. We have a client we're working with our marketing agency who's taking a big leap forward. They are spending anywhere from mid to high 5 figures a month in ad spend, and they wanted to jump the gun and now get to 6 figures a month on ad spend. Now, unfortunately for this client, the sales team did not have a congruent enough feedback loop to identify things like common objections or the quality of the closers. And unfortunately, at the first moment that we launched these ads, this resulted in a large amount of ad spend wasted on what otherwise could have been return on investment or even just data at the worst case scenario. So what we did, we installed this feedback loop, And within a week, the sales manager and our actual client were able to quickly identify a couple things. The closers that needed more development or maybe weren't going to work out. They were additionally able to see some common objections that were coming across all the closer sales calls that we can now take and address in our marketing messages. And the best part about this, they got all this feedback within a week, not having to wait 3 weeks or even up to a month wasting their ad spend. Now, one thing I'm going to make completely clear, I do believe the actual closing part is going to be and always will be a human interaction. Purchasing decisions are always usually emotional and trust is always almost human. Where AI is going to implement for sales is the actual intelligence layer. So your closers are going to continue to handle the actual finish line, but the AI is going to help get you that feedback loop to increase it. Now, once you got your marketing and sales running, there's still one thing left. And for anyone managing an actual team, it's the one thing that matters the most as you start to scale. We get into system 3, which we call the operational control layer. Now, this is the one that typically breaks down the fastest when a team starts to heavily scale. Now, without it, usually what this looks like is like you have staff member A over here who's performing at a completely different level than staff member B who's maybe down here. Worst case scenario, which I've seen multiple times, is processes live in people's head instead of the actual business itself. Essentially, you have hard-coded knowledge that can walk out the door the moment someone leaves. And worst case scenario, you as a business owner become the only consistent variable, which means you can actually never truly take a step back. As I mentioned earlier, I manage over 200 plus staff across 11 Orange Theory locations. I know exactly what it looks like when operations depends on specific people instead of actual systems. We've had it where one person is left and suddenly nobody knows how this certain process or system worked. Or even worse, for those who've experienced this, one bad hire and the quality drops across the board for the whole fitness studio in my case, and we don't even recognize it until a client complains or until we get consistent feedback from emails. Now here's the beautiful part. Something like the operational context layer, what it does, it takes our SOPs that stop living in Google Docs that nobody reads. It takes our training material that one person has all in their head. And what ends up happening is your standards stop depending on who happened to be in the room when a new hire started, and they become an actual system your team can run. So it's something accessible, enforceable, consistent, something everyone has access to. So how it works, we take your existing SOPs, even rough ones, and turn them into an agent. Your team now has the ability to actually contact the agent, and essentially a new hire would get the same answer that a 5-year veteran would either give or a 10-year experienced team member would provide. New staff onboarding is maybe 2 to 3 days as opposed to 2 to 3 weeks. And quality stops depending on who trained the person or the mood of the person that trained them. The business runs at your standard and your expected level, even if you're not the one enforcing it. All right, so you got the 3 systems, but now we have what we call the order of operations. The most common mistake in trying to automate everything all at once is you are taking a full AI suite. Week 1, you're trying to implement it all and nothing's gonna work properly. The whole thing gets completely written off. So this order is very important in terms of how you're going to implement this into your business. So step 1, you're going to conduct an audit. Before you build anything, you need to know where your real bottlenecks are as a business. Not the ones you assume or maybe you're thinking top of mind, but the ones you can truly actually verify. Usually what we've seen is the bottleneck you as an owner think you have and the one you actually have are rarely ever the same thing. Step number 2 is you're going to start with the highest leverage single workflow. So usually it's in the marketing output or sales feedback loop because those have a direct correlation to your actual revenue generated. And typically they get the fastest feedback loop for a win. So you want a win your team can see really early. Step number 3, you're gonna actually build your agent now. And this agent is trained on your business. We're separating away from the generic tools that's no longer a thing. This is the part that makes your outputs actually usable. This agent's trained on your SOPs, your voice, your standards. And here's the thing, if you skip this step, you're back to getting the output that sounds like it came from a generic ChatGPT or whatever else it might be. Step number 4, you're gonna run it up against real work. So we now have an output that our AI agent has made and we're gonna run it up and compare it to what our team is currently producing. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna refine it until it either matches or exceeds that quality. And here's the thing, this part takes iteration. Similar to how training a new hire would be, just a little bit faster. Then we get into step number 5, we integrate and expand. So your team learns to work with the actual system and it expands from there. Most teams see measurable output increase within 30 days. To be honest, we've seen full ROI where the system is clearly paying for itself happen within the 60 to 90 day window. Now here's the thing, AI won't fix a broken business, but if you are already doing real revenue and you're still the one holding everything together, that's a systems gap, not a you gap. And that's exactly what these 3 systems fix. So if you want to know what this looks like for your specific business, links in the description for a free call. I'll show you exactly where to start and how to start implementing AI systems into your business today.